Alright, we're at the Detroit Invitational Cyclocross, and I've never done a cyclocross event, but here we are. We're all lined up in the staging area, getting ready to take off. I'm in the back, there I am. I've got my water bottle, which I keep fidgeting with, and it completely entrances me because everyone else takes off. The whistle blows, and I still haven't put it away yet, so it takes me a second to get moving, but I do. I come out of the starting gates at about 21st position. Now we're going to switch over to the front of the bike camera so you can see a good look at the course. I want to do a full lap of the course before I break anything up, just because it was such a neat place to ride a bike. I've never ridden on a cyclocross course before, so this whole experience was wildly different from what I expected cyclocross to be, and it was actually better than I expected cyclocross to be. So I want to show the whole course here before I end up moving on a bit quicker through the video. This course was 1.4 miles. It was a circuit, and one of the traits of the course that was mentioned prior to the race was that it was a off camber course. So this hill is really where we race on. You can see we're coming down this hill and there's a lot of turns and twists and there's people everywhere, but you're never on flat ground. You're always leaning left or right or up or back, which I love. Now, one thing about starting so far back, I ended up starting out in like a 21st-ish position, but in cyclocross, you can see everyone's pretty much single file. So the guys that are in first through fifth, they might even have as much as a minute on me already. So that's something for me to take into account for the future. But we had a great day for this. This is actually the Cat 5 beginner men's group. It was one of the bigger fields, I think. I could be mistaken in that. But there were about 30 riders. And you're not going to fit 30 people wide here, so you really do have to slim down into a single file. And look at this back and forth snake is so cool. It's almost a great place to recover because you can't really pedal. You can only move your bike. You can maneuver it to get it down this hill. You can't really put any power out until you get to the bottom here. You've got a nice straight into this wooded area. You can see some barriers there on the left that you have to jump over later, which is something I hadn't really experienced before. I'm kind of in race mode. I'm used to gravel racing, so I'm thinking if I can draft off this guy, I might get some benefit, but how much benefit is a couple seconds of draft? I'm not totally sure, so I really focused more on the lines that I was trying to take, not slipping out, falling over. I'm just enjoying it. The sun's out, it's just a nice fall day. Now this guy, not directly in front of me, but in front of him, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is actually the president of the Ann Arbor Velo Club, a big group of cyclists in Ann Arbor, and he has wooden shoes on. I'm not sure why he had to wear wooden shoes for this race, but it was something that they talked about prior to the race, which I thought was hilarious. And I think it might have been painful for him. I'm not sure, but I would imagine. I wanted to get around him. Maybe this guy in the Morning Cranks outfit here to the left, or the Morning Cranks kit, he might be somebody I could follow, I thought. So I wanted to have a look from a couple different angles of these barriers. When you watch pros run over these things, they are moving so fast, and that's not really the case for me. I'm getting over them, and thankfully I actually just wore tennis shoes, which I'm not sure if that was a good idea at the time, but I have tennis shoes on, so I can actually jump on and off the bike pretty easily. It looked silly in the starting gate. I thought, wow, I'm the only person here with tennis shoes on. But it actually, I think it worked out to my favor. We'll look more at that later. So you can see I'm getting around some people. I'm making some moves, just taking corners sharper. I'm braking heavily. I'm accelerating quickly. Lots of turns in this race. So again, I'm trying to stay close to the people in front of me. If I can get any benefit from watching their lines or any draft effects, then I'm going to try to take advantage of those. I knew I wanted to get around this guy because there's a bit of a gap opening up in front of him. So this was the first muddy section that was on the course. So I take the inside line there and I accidentally sort of drift over in front of him, but nonetheless, we ended up in the spot. So onward we move. Here we find ourselves in another muddy spot, and this one was quite good at the start of the race. The first lap of 4, there's still some grassy spots. There are some pretty obvious lines that you can take, and it's not really that big of an issue, but that'll change later on. There's still a good line of riders in front of us, so I can't really put too much power down to the extent that I can make up ground on some of the leaders. This off-camber section was probably the hardest on the course because I had to always walk my bike here because it was so steep and my pedals couldn't turn without digging up some dirt. So I knew I would have to walk there, not a problem. And one of the best features of this race is this old velodrome that they have here in the park. And it's way steeper than I ever imagined. I've never been in or on or around a velodrome. So when I had actually pre-ridden the course, I was a little afraid to pedal because I thought my pedals would hit and then it would kick me out and fall down. But yeah, these banks are so steep. It's obviously not used for racing nowadays. I mean, I guess you could maybe gravel bike race around this thing, but it's still a cool feature. And it's great to have it as part of a different discipline of cycling than what it probably was intended for. This part of the course was tricky because you would come in off the velodrome from being in a high gear, have to go into a low gear to get around that dirt, and then up the track you needed an even lower gear, so shifting there was a little bit tricky. There's my girlfriend, she's the best. She's recording, getting these other good shots that we need to really make this a more well-rounded video than it would be otherwise. This is a fun, punchy dirt climb. It's pretty vertical. It was fun to just hammer up that. I'm still thinking about my position, and I know I've made up some spots, but I know there's more spots to be made up. As long as there's someone in front of me, I'll try to chase to get to them and try to move forward and better my result. I was pretty tired here, but I knew I would have to get around this guy. And I thought that perhaps this guy in the yellow and myself could move through the field together because we had been at the same point for most of this race. I'm sort of letting him take the lead if he wants to here, so we're kind of both doing the same thing, I think, sort of hoping one of us goes in front. I inevitably end up doing that. And this whole section is all off camber, up and down on the side of this hill. This is one of the more difficult sections to climb out of right here. And again, it's not too bad on this first lap, but as we get later into the race, that becomes more and more challenging. And we're back down and then back up, so you don't even have a chance to get onto a flat surface. You're turning left on an incline. It's fantastic. It really adds some difficulty. You see my bike actually turns all the way to the left, trying to go to the right. Now this section takes us up to the finish, and it's hard to tell, but this is on an incline and there's some long grass here, which is soul sucking. It just slows you down, so you can really just settle into a decent cadence and just work your way up this thing. As badly as I would like to get up it quicker, this is pretty much all I have. And at this point, coming through for lap 2, I'm going to be about 14th-ish position. We skip ahead to lap 2. I'm coming through the muddy section. It looks worse than the first lap because it is. And my girlfriend got this cool shot, kind of looking down this snaky, muddy section. And I have moved up a bit earlier in this lap. A couple people had some issues with mechanicals, and then I passed a couple of people. So I am a little bit more forward than I had been. Here's a look at how I handle that off-camber section. I'm wearing tennis shoes, so I can get on and off the bike pretty simply. really gonna help me out when I have to get off the bike so often. Coming up this hill, we're coming up to the end of lap 2, start of lap 3, and I'm currently in 11th place. So we've got 10th, 9th, and 8th on our screens here. And the wind is coming from my right side, and I'm so tired that I really just want to use this guy as a wind block. I had been following him around the course because he had been getting around the course pretty quickly, and at this point I just needed a break. So I had passed 10th and 9th, and this is my pass on 8th, so I've now moved myself into 8th position, coming into the barriers for lap 3. Trying to maintain that speed. I keep my bars remarkably straight here. And it almost looks like the camera just moves up and down. There's not a big difference in speed there. Now, lap 3, the course is getting muddy. I'm having a really hard time getting through this section. There's no grass really, and I'm spinning. I still get through it. Still make it through. The end of lap 3, I'm coming through in 8th place. Now, I don't know this. I don't know where I'm at in the race, but after the fact I know this. Now, here an interesting situation develops. I'm in 8th place. The rider behind me in the yellow there, which you'll see again shortly, she's a rider that I've ridden with at multiple races throughout this year. I've only beaten her to the line one time. The rest of the races she finishes in the front group and I'm somewhere else. And I know this, so I'm really trying to stay ahead of her. I'm taking these turns as fast as I can, and I know it doesn't look that fast, but I'm really on the gas here. I'm really pushing it. Leaning my bike over, I'm pedaling anywhere that I can pedal. And like this other character here, who's about to come across the screen right here, he's actually in 7th place. So I'm chasing him and trying to get away from the rider behind me. A little slip there. Standing up, I'm just trying to get power down. I want to get away from her because I know she's faster than me. As the season's gone on, I have not beaten her at all. And this is the last lap of the race. This is lap 404. I've put a little bit more distance between myself and her on the technical section. And I see a rider here who I want to get around on this straight while I have time. So I put in a little effort to sprint. This helps put a rider between me and the rider behind me, and it also gets me closer to the guy that I'm chasing. So you navigate around these trees for the last time. This was my recovery section. This is where I usually try to get my breath back. But this time I'm all in. I'm going for it. This is the last lap, so if I leave anything out here, I just haven't done my best. So I'm going all in. And I can see him. He's right there, but he's not close enough to get a run at to pass. That's one of the glorious things about this course is, you know, your competitors are always within sight for the most part. Now, I'd been doing pretty well on these barriers throughout this race, and I was hoping that perhaps I could make up a little bit of ground here. Running, it felt a lot faster when I was doing it, but it looks kind of slow. But I'm putting in the effort. Again, another good shot from Sarah here on this hill. Quickly trying to get up and down. I'm getting closer, but also the rider behind me is getting closer. We're all closing up on each other, and there's another rider that I want to get around that has now put themselves between my competition and me. So we get around her. I'm really chasing this guy down. Through this muddy section, I made up a little bit of ground. He had some wobbles earlier on. And down through this little valley here, I had found a pretty quick line on the inside. And I was able to get into the 7th position, and now it's just a fight to stay ahead of the rider in the yellow. So we're really close to the finish here. This is the last time up that slick hill. Coming into the finish. Now look at this. This guy behind me with the red helmet, you can kind of see him there. There's a pretty good gap between us here. So I settle in at a cadence, what I've been doing this whole race. I'm still trying hard because I know that there's people behind me. I take a quick look under the shoulder here in a second, but I have not let off the gas. I'm still moving. See, there's the look. I'm good. There's no one there. I still think that it's worthwhile to, sprint across the line. I always want to do that. So I do that. But look at this. This man teleports to right there. He was just seconds behind me after being much further away. Impressive. A couple of closing notes here. The rider in yellow actually did beat me in terms of time over the course of the 4 laps because her wave had started about a minute behind mine, so she actually finished about a minute ahead of me in the results. I really want to thank the Racing Greyhounds for putting this event on. I know that any event takes a ton of work to put on, and I can't imagine what it takes to put on a cyclocross event. There was a food truck at this event called Delectable, and wow, just amazing. Some of the best food truck food I've ever eaten. So the next and last race of the season is the Lowell 30-mile race in just about a week. So look for that video in a couple of weeks. Other than that, see you later.